noticed it the first time around midnight, when he stepped into the vestibule for the reason people step into vestibules when they can't sleep. Just to stand there, breathe different air, listen to the train talking to itself at speed. It sat against the wall at a slight angle, as if someone had set it down in a hurry and never came back to straighten it. Old, the kind made from real leather, thick and dark brown, with brass clasps gone greenish over the years, the way brass does when it's lived a long time. The corners were worn through. On one side, a half-peeled label with lettering that had faded to a few unreadable characters. The strap, cinched across the middle, had probably been light tan once, but was now just leather. Some indefinite colour. Still strong. Andrew stood beside it for a while, one hand on the rail, looking out the window. Beyond the vestibule glass, darkness, and occasional lights that appeared and vanished like thoughts you don't quite finish. The train moved steadily, no lurching, and the floor hummed under his feet in a slow, even rhythm, like something alive. The smell in here was particular, that vestibule smell that doesn't exist anywhere else. Metal, rubber, and something else he couldn't name, but had known since childhood. His father had smelled something like that, tobacco and something slightly sweet that Andrew had never been able to name as a boy, had stopped noticing as he grew older, and had now suddenly remembered. Here, in the vestibule of a night train, standing beside someone else's old suitcase. He went back to his compartment, lay down, couldn't sleep. Andrew was travelling to his father's funeral. It wasn't that he had recently lost touch with his father. He hadn't seen him in 7 years. He called sometimes, on birthdays and around the holidays. Brief and practical. How's your health? How are the neighbours? Okay, good. Same here. His father lived in Portland, alone, in the same apartment where Andrew had grown up, the one with windows facing the hill, where you could hear the fog on mornings when there was fog. Andrew lived in Chicago, worked at an architecture firm, designed shopping centres, and occasionally something more interesting. Had been married, then divorced, then almost married again, but no. Life went the way life goes for people whose lives are going. Not badly, not wonderfully, just going. Calling his father for real, not on his birthday, just to talk, was something Andrew had planned many times. He put it off, not because he didn't want to, but because there was always something. A deadline, exhaustion, an evening when it was already late, a morning when it was still too early. And so it went, week, month, year. Then someone called him, his father's neighbour, Margaret, whom he remembered from childhood. Small, always in her house dress. She said it plainly and quietly, the way people say things they've already said to several other people that day. Your father passed away Wednesday morning, peacefully, in his sleep. Will you be coming? Andrew bought a ticket on the next train. A plane would have been faster, but the train. He didn't know exactly why. He just chose the train. 4 days of travel, Chicago to Portland. He told himself it was to give himself time. He lay on the upper bunk and stared at the ceiling, white with a faint yellowish cast, with a small night light that gave off the soft glow that only train lights manage. Below him, 2 passengers asleep. a middle-aged woman with a knitting bag she hadn't opened, and a man in glasses who'd read something on a tablet all evening. Both sleeping soundlessly, the way people sleep on trains when they've done a lot of travelling. Andrew couldn't. His mind just wouldn't stop. It ran the same loop, not with sharp pain, but with the dull insistence of something you can't shake loose. The neighbour's phone call, Margaret's voice, the words peacefully and in his sleep, and the empty apartment in Portland that he had been meaning to visit for years. Around 1 a.m, he got up again, climbed quietly down, pulled on his jeans and a sweater, and went out to the vestibule. The suitcase was still in the same place. He lit a cigarette. He smoked rarely, bought 1 pack for long trips and made it last, and stood there looking at the suitcase. The train passed through the edge of some city. Lights thickened beyond the glass. Buildings appeared, street lamps, then darkness again. The city went past like a dream, there and gone. He finished the cigarette and stayed where he was. The suitcase didn't belong to anyone. That was obvious. No jacket thrown on top, no bag beside it. Nothing. It just stood there, as if someone had left it. He touched the clasp. It gave easily, without resistance, as if the suitcase had been waiting. Inside, there were no clothes. He had expected shirts, old books, some objects. But inside, there were letters. Many letters. Tied in bundles with linen ribbon, faded but strong. 8 or 9 bundles. The envelopes were different sizes, some small and square, others standard rectangular. Some had stamps, all addressed by hand. He picked up the top envelope. On it, written simply, "For Vera." The handwriting was firm, masculine, with a slight leftward tilt. The envelope wasn't sealed, just tucked closed. Andrew took out the letter. Thick paper, slightly yellowed, folded in half. He opened it. Beyond the vestibule window, a station drifted past. A flash of platform with a single lamp and no one on it, and then darkness again. The train didn't stop. Andrew began to read from the first letter. "Vera, I don't know how to begin. I'll start with what I know for certain. I boarded this train 3 hours ago. It's dark, and out the window there's nothing, only lights now and then. I wanted to call before I left. I didn't call. You know why. We're both equally bad at silence and equally stubborn about it, and that's probably just us. I'm writing because on paper it comes out better than out loud. You say I'm no good at saying what matters. You're right, I'm not. The words get stuck somewhere between what you feel and what comes out as sound. On paper they find their place on their own. I don't know why. Write to me, please. Stephen." Andrew folded the letter and held it for a long time without putting it back. The train moved. The sound of the wheels was even, almost musical. Ta-dum, ta-dum, with a small pause on every 4th beat, as if the train were breathing. Stephen, Vera. He didn't know who they were, didn't know when this had been written, no date on the letter. Could have been any year. Maybe 30 years ago, maybe 20. He picked up the next envelope, the same handwriting. For Vera. He opened it. From the second letter. "Vera, I'm in Albuquerque. Colder than I expected. I stepped off the platform for 20 minutes, just to stand still, feel ground under my feet. Since in the car you start to forget the ground exists. I bought something warm from a woman at the platform. I thought of you while I ate it. It's strange, thinking about someone while eating on a platform in October, in a city you're only passing through. But that's what happened. You're probably home right now, maybe reading, maybe already asleep. You always fell asleep early, I remember. I myself fell asleep badly. I'd lie there thinking about everything until I stopped thinking. I like this feeling. You travel and the earth falls away behind you, and you don't know what's ahead, only that you're moving. It's like how I think about us. I don't know what's ahead. I only know that I'm going.
Write me at least a word. Stephen.
Andrew left the vestibule, walked down the corridor, and stood at the window in the passage. Beyond the glass there was night and scattered lights. He held 2 bundles of letters in his hands. He didn't understand why he was reading someone else's letters. He knew it wasn't his business. But there was something in them. Something he recognized without being able to name it. Not the content. The voice. The way Stephen wrote, not to report something important, but simply to be near someone across the distance. To send words somewhere they couldn't go in person. Andrew had never been able to do that. He always put things off, the way he put off calls, visits, that one conversation with his father he'd needed to have for years and kept moving to later. Later had run out on a Wednesday morning. He walked back to the vestibule for the suitcase.
He brought it to his compartment, climbed to the upper bunk, set the suitcase beside him, barely fitting, and read by the light of his phone, angled toward the wall. The next bundle held a different handwriting, less confident, more rounded. He opened the first. From the reply. Vera to Stephen. Stephen, I got your letter from Albuquerque, only 2 weeks after you wrote it. It arrived on a Wednesday, and I read it in the hallway by the mailbox, standing there for probably 5 minutes, until the neighbor came out and gave me a look. You say words get stuck between what you feel and what comes out as sound. I understand. Same for me, only backwards. My words come too fast, and I say something and then realize I said the wrong thing. Or not everything. Or everything, but not the way I meant. It's autumn here. In the mornings it's cold, and I got out that wool blanket you brought back from the mountains 3 years ago. It still smells like the road, if you hold it close. Or maybe I only imagine it does. Come back, please. Vera. Andrew set the letter down on his chest and looked at the ceiling. Outside the window something had changed. The darkness had shifted. Not solid anymore, but faintly translucent, with that bluish tinge the sky gets before a moon appears. He looked. The moon was already there, nearly full, travelling alongside the train as if it had simply ended up as a companion. Come back, please. 2 words he couldn't remember whether he had ever said to his father. Probably as a child, when his father went away on business. Later, no. Later, they had switched places. Andrew left for Chicago and became the one who leaves, while his father became the one who stays. You had perhaps also waited for those 2 words. Perhaps. He didn't know. They never said things like that. The letters came mixed, Stephen's and hers, sometimes with long gaps between them, sometimes nearly back to back. You could feel the rhythm of their correspondence, at times urgent, at times sparse, with pauses that suggested arguments or simply life that doesn't leave room. From the third letter, Stephen. Vera, I've been in Portland a week. The apartment is small, but the windows face the hill. I already told you that on the phone, remember? You asked what colour the hill was. Green, I said. You went quiet and said, good. I like your good. It comes in different kinds. Sometimes it just means good, and that's all. Sometimes there's something more behind it that you're not saying, but that comes through anyway. I've learned to tell the difference. That's probably what it means to know someone. There's the Pacific here. I went to see it the first day, just to look. You won't believe this, but it's nothing like you picture from photographs. It's alive. Not in the sense that it moves, in the sense that it feels like a living thing. Large, very old, and very calm. I thought of you, standing at the ocean. I thought, you should be here right now. And then immediately, no, not now. Later, when things settle, I'll probably catch myself putting it off again. Right. Stephen. From the fourth letter. Stephen. Vera, it's been 3 months and nothing from you. I've written you 2 more letters that you either haven't received or received and didn't answer. I don't know which is worse. I called you last Friday. No answer. I don't know whether you're not home or don't want to talk. It's been raining here. When it rains, the hill outside my window turns grey and nearly disappears into the fog. Just a silhouette left. I like looking at it then. It becomes something from an old film, blurred and far away. I think about you every day. That must mean something on its own. Write anything. Stephen. Andrew shifted the letters, picked up the next bundle. The train moved. Somewhere past the horizon, something told him dawn was coming. Not the dawn itself, just the suggestion of it. That imperceptible change in the sky that happens an hour before it begins to lighten. Maybe 4 in the morning. He didn't check his phone. He didn't want to look at the time. It felt like looking would break something. From the 5th letter. Vera. Stephen, forgive me. I didn't write for a long time. Almost 6 months. And I can't explain why, because each reason sounds like an excuse, and all of them together are the truth, which is awkward to say. I thought I needed to be alone for a while, not away from you, just away from everything. Sometimes I need that, you know. You always tolerated it better than I did. And then 6 months had passed, and I realized I had no reason not to write to you right now. So I'm writing. How are you? How is Portland? How is the hill? Is it still green? I thought about coming. Several times I almost decided. Something held me back, maybe because coming would mean doing something real, and I still wasn't sure I knew how. You're Vera. From the 6th letter, Stephen. Vera, I received your letter and read it 3 times, just to make sure it was real. The hill is green. It's spring now. That kind of green where it's so bright it almost hurts to look at. At the top, something is blooming, small, white. I don't know what it is. I would like to show you. You write about coming. Come. I mean it. Buy a ticket, get on a train, and come.
I know it's frightening, but it's not as frightening as what happens if you don't come, and we both go on thinking about it. Come, please. Stephen. Andrew set down the letters and lay on his back. The train moved. Ta-dum, ta-dum. Steady, unhurried, just there. Come, please. He thought about his father, about whether his father had also been waiting for those words, or hadn't been waiting. Andrew didn't know. That was the worst of it. He didn't know what his father had been waiting for, because he'd never asked. And now it was too late. He reached for the next bundle. From the 8th letter. Vera, Stephen, I bought a ticket. If I write any more, I'll talk myself out of it. Wait for me. Vera. Andrew laughed, quietly, to himself. The train moved, and in the dark compartment, the steady sound of the wheels continued, and he lay there with the letter in his hand and laughed, not quite knowing why. He knew exactly why. It was the laugh of recognition, of meeting something that describes you precisely, except someone else wrote it a long time ago, and they knew this too. Buy the ticket. Don't explain. Just wait for me. He stared at the ceiling and thought, what if he'd called his father like that? Just, Dad, I'm coming. Wait for me. No explanation, no apology, just wait. Would he have been glad? Probably, yes. His father was the kind of man who didn't show gladness, but simply started moving, putting the kettle on, finding somewhere to put the bags, saying something about the weather. But he would have been glad. Andrew knew that, or almost knew it, or wanted to believe he did. Outside, the sky had begun to shift. Not dawn yet, but pre-dawn. That hour when the darkness yields reluctantly, slowly, and with dignity. He took the next bundle. The letters were rarer now, with longer gaps. He read them one at a time. Stephen reporting from Portland, a neighbour named Mike who worked the harbour, who knew when to be quiet. First snow on the hill. A notebook started for thoughts that needed somewhere to go. Then, from the 16th letter, Vera. Stephen, I got married. You probably weren't expecting that. I wasn't either. His name is Daniel. He's a good man. He's here, nearby, and he doesn't leave. Forgive me if anything is wrong. Vera. Andrew stopped, read it twice. Outside, it was fully daylight now, that even morning light that arrives quietly and seems like it was always there. The train was passing through dark, thick woods with openings where the sky appeared. He tried to picture Stephen reading this letter, somewhere in Portland, in an apartment with a view of the hill. What it was like to open the envelope, read 3 lines, understand that something had ended, not through anyone's fault, just ended, because of distance and the gaps, and life pulling in different directions. The next letter was from Stephen. From the 17th letter. Stephen. Vera, I'm glad for you. That isn't sarcasm, I mean it. Daniel is a lucky man. He may not even know how lucky. I'm holding the thread. From my end. Stephen. Andrew set down the letter. A small station appeared outside the window. passed without stopping, vanished. I'm holding the thread from my end. He lay back and thought that this was the most frightening and most real thing at once, that you can hold a thread from one end even when the other end goes slack, that it isn't victory or defeat, just a person who holds, because they decided it had to be done, or because they don't know another way. His father was like that. Andrew understood this now. His father always called first. Not often, but always first. Said something about the weather, the neighbors, some small thing. Never once said, "Why don't you ever call?" Never reproached him, just called himself, held the thread from his end. And Andrew had been the end where it sagged. He reached for the last bundle, a few envelopes only. Stephen's handwriting was larger now, the way it gets in older people, when the hand is still sure, but slower. Each word placed more carefully. From a letter of Stephen's, addressed to Andrew. He stopped, read the name again. Andrew. His name was Andrew. But this couldn't be for him. He didn't know any Stephen, and Stephen didn't know him. He unfolded the letter. Andrew, I don't know if you'll receive this letter. Most likely not. I'm not entirely sure I have the right address, and I'm not sure I'll have the courage to send it. But I'm writing because you're my son, and because there are things I should have said to you a long time ago. Andrew stopped breathing, then started again. My son. He sat up on the bunk, caught the suitcase with one hand before it could tip, and held it, until he realized he was gripping too hard. The letter was in his hands, thick paper, blue ink, large, careful script. Andrew, I don't know if you'll receive this, but I'm writing because you're my son, and because there are things I should have said a long time ago and didn't. You know I'm no good at saying out loud the things that matter. You grew up with that and probably carry some of it yourself, I've noticed. That's not a reproach, just an observation. I'm 73. I live in Portland. You know that. I don't want you to think I'm angry or that I'm waiting for something particular. I'm not angry. Life takes the shape it takes, and Chicago is far, and you have your own life, and I understand all of that. I just want to tell you that I thought about you. Not sometimes, a great deal. You were small, and then you grew up and left, and our lives went in different directions, but I always thought about you. That's not grand words, it's just the truth. I've decided to get on a train. I'm coming to see you. I should have called, should have given notice, but then I decided that if I call, I'll start explaining, and there's nothing to explain. I'm just coming. I just want to see you. If you get this letter before I arrive, wait. If later, then I'm already there. Your father, Stephen. Andrew held the letter and couldn't move. Outside the window, woods moved past. Morning light came through the pines, their shadows long and nearly horizontal. The train moved, to-dum, evenly, without hurry. His father's name was Richard, not Stephen. His father had lived in Portland and had died on a Wednesday morning. Peacefully,
in his sleep. This was another Andrew, a different father, a different story. But Andrew sat on the upper bunk and couldn't look away from the letter, because the letter was his. Not because it was written to him, because it was about him and his father who was gone, about wanting to see someone, about having nothing to explain, just wanting to see. That Stephen had made it in time. He had gotten on a train and gone. Maybe they had met, that Stephen and his son with the same name. Maybe the door opened and there was surprise, and they sat down for tea, and it was awkward the first few minutes, and then somehow it worked. Or not quite the way either of them had planned, but it worked. That Stephen had made it in time. Andrew didn't take the letter back, just held it and looked out the window, at the forest, at the morning light between the trees. His own father had also, maybe, been planning. Maybe thought, I'll call him soon. I'll go visit. I'll find the time. And then on a Wednesday morning, quietly, in his sleep. And Andrew hadn't known, wouldn't know now. Or, here was what he thought, sitting on the upper bunk with a stranger's letter in his hand. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but that isn't the main thing. The main thing is that Andrew is going now, going where he should have gone long ago. And that already is something. That already is a beginning. He climbed quietly down from the bunk, walked to the vestibule. It was cool there. The train was moving. Beyond the glass, field, then woods, then field again, with long shadows from the sun just appearing above the horizon. He took out his phone. Margaret answered on the third ring. "Margaret," he said, "this is Andrew, Richard's son." Andrew. Just that. Andrew. No, how are you? No, is everything okay? Just Andrew. "I'm on my way," he said. "I'm on the train. I'll be there Friday." "Good," she said, the way people say it when everything is understood and nothing more is needed. "I'll meet you." "No need," he said. "I'll find my way. I know the way." He knew the way. He had always known the way. He just hadn't come. They said goodbye. He put the phone away, stood at the window. Then he thought, there's someone else I should call. Not because I have to, just someone. He dialed. His sister lived in Seattle, and they saw each other less than once a year and called about as often. There had been no fight, just life, distance, the usual. She answered. "Andrew?" Surprised, but not alarmed. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," he said. "I'm on my way to Dad, for the funeral, you know?" "Yes," she said. Her voice shifted, became quieter. "I was going to fly out, but if you're taking the train, I'll wait for you." "I'm on the train," he said. 4 days. A pause. "Why?" she asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I wanted to give myself time." She was quiet. He could hear her breathing, steady, thoughtful. "Remember," she said finally, "how he always said a plane isn't really travel, that real travel is only the train?" "I remember," said Andrew. And he really did. His father said it every time Andrew flew in from Chicago. His father never flew, only trains. He used to say,
On a plane, there's no journey, just takeoff and landing. A journey is when you travel. He knew how, said his sister. He did, said Andrew. They were quiet for a moment. The train moved. Outside the window, the woods had given way to open land, and the horizon was far off, flat and endless. Call me while you're traveling, said his sister. Just to talk, okay? Okay, he said. On the third day, he wrote a letter, a real one. Found a notepad in his bag, a pen, sat by the window and wrote. Not to his father. There was nowhere to send something to his father now. He wrote to himself, to the version of himself from 3 years ago, from 5, from 7. The one who every time said, I'll call, and didn't. He wrote, You were afraid. I understand. You were afraid it would be awkward, that too much time had passed. But he was holding the thread from his end, and you were holding yours, and the thread was there. It was there. You're going now. That means something. He folded the page in half, put it in his pocket. He wouldn't send it. He'd just carry it. On the 4th day, he talked with Kevin, his seatmate, around 40, practical, going to visit his brother in Seattle. Hadn't seen him in 2 years. Good that you're going, Kevin said, when Andrew mentioned the funeral. Yeah, said Andrew. Good. They watched the forest together for a while. Then Kevin pulled a thermos from his bag. Coffee? My wife made it. They drank the coffee, hot, with a faint smell of cardamom, looked out the window. Didn't say anything in particular, just sat there together, watching the trees. Sometimes that's enough. Later that evening, Andrew found a sheet of paper in his bag and wrote slowly, choosing words not because he wanted to be eloquent, but because he wanted to be exact. Dad, I'm on my way. Almost there. 4 days on a train. A lot. But this feels right. You were right about trains. You think on them. Don't always arrive at something smart, but always arrive at something. I found a suitcase in the vestibule with letters inside. A stranger's. Someone who also had trouble saying the things that mattered out loud. Read them all night. I think because they were about something familiar. I thought about you the whole time I wasn't calling. That's not an excuse, just the truth. And you probably thought about me too. We were both thinking and both quiet, at opposite ends of the thread. Forgive the silence. I'm coming, and I'll open the window that faces the hill. I'll sit in your chair. I'll drink tea from your mug. That's not nothing. Your Andrew. He folded the page and put it in his pocket, beside the stranger's letter. Let them be together. Outside the window it was getting dark. The forest turned blue in the dusk, then black, then vanished. The train moved. He lay down and fell asleep quickly. For the first time on the whole trip, without lying awake first. Just closed his eyes and went under, into sleep that was even and dark, like forest at night. On the 5th day, the ocean appeared outside the window. He saw it without expecting it. The train came around a bend and suddenly there was a bay and water and a far shore and sky above it so wide He wanted to stop and just look. But the train didn't stop. It kept moving, and the ocean appeared and disappeared again behind the hills. Andrew stood in the corridor by the window. Around him, other passengers who had joined at the last few stops. A woman with a small child pressing against the glass. A young woman in headphones who wasn't listening to anything, but was also watching the water. He thought about his father, who had lived here, next to this, who every day in the mornings got up and made coffee and looked out the window at the hill and knew that past the hill there was water, who loved trains and knew that the journey matters more than the speed, who held the thread, called first, sent cards at the holidays without waiting to be called, asked about things knowing the answers would be short, held the thread. And Andrew was arriving, would walk into the apartment, open the window, look at the hill. It wouldn't be too late, not in the sense that anything could be fixed. It couldn't. His father was gone. But he could look at the hill through his father's eyes, sit in his chair, understand what it was to live with that view, with the ocean past the hill, to understand a person he hadn't understood enough. That's not nothing. That's something. Portland met him with fog. Not heavy, light, milky, the kind that comes off the water in early autumn. It softens the air, blurs the edges of buildings, makes the hills look like something painted with ink. Beautiful. His father had probably loved this fog. The platform, people with luggage, the smell of the ocean, not sharp, just light and alive. He stepped off with his bag and stopped on the platform, letting the crowd flow around him. Stood there and breathed. The air really was different. He had known this, remembered it from childhood, but had forgotten exactly how. Now he was remembering. He went back into the vestibule one more time. Not for his things. He had everything. Just walked through the car one last time. The suitcase was in the same place. 4 days, and no one had come for it. It stood against the wall, slightly tilted, worn and quiet. Andrew touched the brass clasp, warm again. He opened it, looked inside. The bundles of letters lay neatly, tied with their linen ribbon. From the top, he took the letter, the one addressed to Andrew, written by a stranger's father to a stranger's son. Read it one more time. The last lines. If you get this letter before I arrive, wait. If later, then I'm already there. Your father. He folded the letter and put it in his pocket, beside the notepad page he'd written to himself and the page he'd written to his father. 3 pieces of paper in one pocket. A stranger's letter, his letter to himself, his letter to his father. He closed the suitcase. The clasps clicked. He lifted it, heavy, even though there was only paper inside. Walked through the platform to the station building. There was a luggage storage desk. He went to the man on duty, older, in a uniform cap, with the face of someone who has seen many suitcases and many people. I'd like to leave a case, Andrew said. No set time, just leave it. Maybe the owner will turn up. The man looked at the suitcase, at Andrew,
nodded, the way people nod when they've seen everything and stopped asking unnecessary questions. "Leave it," he said. "We'll sort it out." Andrew set the suitcase down, signed the logbook, then saw it and asked, "Do you have paper and a pen?" The man pulled a sheet and a pen from a drawer. Andrew wrote briefly, "If the owner comes, return to them. If not, the letters inside are worth reading. They're good ones." He tucked the note under the strap. "Thank you," he said. He walked out to the plaza in front of the station. The fog was still there, light, milky. The hill behind the city was visible as a silhouette, green, large, alive. He called Margaret. "I'm here." "Good," she said in the same voice. "I have the key."
"Come by." He put the phone away, lifted his bag, walked. He knew the way. 20 minutes from the station if he didn't hurry. He didn't hurry. He walked through streets he half remembered, changed and not changed, the way places are when you haven't been back for a long time. The streetcar lines on the main road, the smell of the ocean that never leaves this city, the hills rising above the rooftops. He stopped at a small cafe, got a coffee, sat by the window. A streetcar went past, old, yellow, exactly what it had always been. He remembered this streetcar. His father sometimes rode it somewhere on errands, and sometimes took Andrew along, and they looked out the window, and his father said something about how the city had or hadn't changed. The streetcar was gone. Andrew drank his coffee, thought about the suitcase standing in storage with his note under the strap. Maybe someone would come for it. Maybe the letters would find someone who needed them. Maybe they already had. He finished, paid, went out. Margaret answered quickly, small in her house dress, keys already in hand. She looked at him for a long moment, the way people look at someone they remember differently. "You look like him," she said, "around the eyes." "Do I?" He hadn't known this, had never thought about it. "Yes," she said simply, "like he's seeing everything." She handed him the keys. He went up to the 3rd floor on foot. The stairs were the same ones he'd run up as a boy, knowing every step. They were all still there. He fitted the key, turned it. The smell was the same. He hadn't expected that, hadn't thought the smell would still be there. Old books, a little tobacco, something faintly sweet. The smell he had caught in the train vestibule beside the old suitcase. The smell that had travelled alongside him the whole way. He walked to the main room. The windows faced the hill. The hill was green. Greener than he remembered. Or maybe the day was just good. The fog had cleared, and the green was bright, almost vivid. He stood at the window, looked. He stood there for a long time. At the hill, at the sky above it, at a cloud moving slowly over the top, slowly, as if it had nowhere to be. Then he took from his pocket the 2 pages, the stranger's letter and his own letter to his father, laid them on the windowsill, side by side. Let them be there. He opened the window. Wet air came in, carrying the smell of the hill, and something else he recognized after a moment. The ocean.
The ocean was past the hill, invisible, but there. It had always been here. He just hadn't stood at this window in a long time. Behind him, the apartment his father had lived in for years. A chair against the wall, old, leather, worn armrests. A bookshelf, full, dense. Books lying horizontally on top of vertical ones because there was no more room. Photographs on the wall. In one, his father young, maybe 30, laughing somewhere outdoors. Andrew didn't know who had taken it. In another, the two of them, his father and a small Andrew, maybe 6 years old, standing by a car somewhere, his father holding his hand, both with serious expressions, the way people look when told to face the camera, and they face it and don't smile. In the third, just the ocean, shot slightly blurred. At the bottom, in pen, Pacific Ocean, 1982. Andrew looked at these photographs for a long time, then went to the chair, touched the armrest, soft leather, a little cool, sat in his father's chair, and sat there. He looked out the window from this angle, the hill slightly larger, slightly different. This was the first place in the apartment from which he was seeing through someone else's eyes. He thought, this is how his father saw it. Every day. In the morning with coffee. In the evening with the paper. When he was lonely. And when he wasn't. When he thought of Andrew. And when he thought of other things. This place became a little more known. He went to the kitchen. The kettle was there, electric, silver. He filled it, switched it on, waited. On the counter, a mug, a spoon, a small jar of preserves. He opened the jar, tasted. Gooseberry, slightly tart, very homemade. Put it back. The kettle clicked. He made tea. Took the mug, ordinary, blue, with a small crack on the handle. Held it with both hands and felt the warmth. Went back to the window, stood there, looked at the hill, drank his tea. Nothing particular, just a person standing at a window drinking tea. Just an evening, just a city used to going to sleep with the smell of the ocean. The 2 pages on the windowsill lay beside his hand. He picked up the stranger's letter, read the last lines one more time. If you get this letter before I arrive, wait. If later, then I'm already there. That Stephen had arrived. Andrew hoped for this. Hoped the other Andrew had opened the door and been surprised, and they had sat down for tea, and it was awkward for the first few minutes. And then somehow, it had worked. Because when a father travels across half the country to see his son, that doesn't need explaining. It already says everything on its own. His own father hadn't traveled to see him. His father had died quietly in this apartment, in his sleep. But he had thought about Andrew. Andrew knew this now, without proof, just knew it. The way you know, looking at a photograph of a small boy standing next to his father, and both are serious. The way you know, holding his blue mug with the crack. Some things don't need proving. They just are. He put the mug down, picked up his phone, found his sister. She answered on the second ring. "Andrew, you made it." "I made it," he said,
standing at his window, looking at the hill. A pause. "How is it?" "Green," he said. "Alive. I understand now why he liked looking at it." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm coming tomorrow. Early flight. I want to be there." "Good," he said. "I'll be here." "Andrew." "Yeah?" "You did the right thing, taking the train. You would have understood." He didn't answer right away, looked at the hill. "I think so too," he said finally. They said goodbye. He put the phone away, stood at the window a little longer. Then he put his own letter in an old envelope he found in the desk drawer and wrote on the front, "To Dad." Set it on the table. Let it stay there. He wouldn't send it. No one to send it to. But let it stay. The train had already left. Somewhere out there it was travelling, carrying other people in other directions, with their suitcases and without. Someone on it was reading by the window right now. Someone was staring into the dark. Someone was awake, thinking about something important they had been putting off for too long. Maybe they'd do something about it. Maybe they'd walk to the vestibule, stand there a while, take out their phone, call. Andrew went to the kitchen, put the kettle on again, waited for it to come to a boil, listened to the quiet sound of it heating. He thought about the letters in the suitcase, about how many words had been in there, written and unsent, sent and unreceived, received and read many times. Words don't disappear. They stay in the paper, in the ink, in the linen ribbon tying the bundles together. They wait, patiently. And about how some words, the important ones, it's better not to wait on. Better to say them out loud, into a phone, across the distance, or come in person, or just come, saying nothing, and by that alone, say everything. The kettle clicked. Andrew made tea, took his father's mug, held it with both hands and felt the warmth move through. Went to the window, stood. The hill in the dark was a dark shape against a slightly lighter sky. Somewhere past it, the ocean, invisible now, but there, always there. He stood and held the thread. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe so you don't miss the next ones, and share this video with someone who also wants to relax and drift off peacefully tonight. And if you'd like to order a personalized bedtime story on any topic, with any characters and any atmosphere, send me a message. Contact details are in the description. See you soon.